Hey, this is Rob from JTRpodcast.com, and this is Rising Sun, the big epic CMON Kickstarter and the most overproduced set collection game you'll probably ever see. Yes, it is. So in this game, 3 to 6 players are going to control a clan, and you're going to be summoning them to the board, stomping around, getting into battles and killing each other, and trying to gain control of these territories that are going to war in order to collect the tokens, and you score points as you go through. You get points at the end of the game for the number of tokens you've got, and the most points wins. So everybody's going to have a clan. You're going to get this clan sheet. You're going to get a bunch of these minis. You get a daimyo, which is got a black base, kind of your leader, and you've got the ones without bases, and you've got your ones with white bases, which are Shinto, which can be sent to temple. More on all that in a bit. You also have an honor track, which goes from lowest rank to highest rank. So if you're the lowest rank, you're at the top. Honor is very important. Not only determines turn order in the first round because you're seated in order of your honor rank, but also honor breaks all ties, with the player being the top of the honor track, the most honorable, therefore the most tie-breaky of all the players. You get an amount of money as your starting income, and you're also shown your starting area on the board. All the areas have a colour related to the colour of the clan, so you kind of get the gist of where you're starting. You put a daimyo, a bushi, and your stronghold into play. You've got several strongholds. You start with one in play. You also shuffle these temples. These are temples for the kami, and they stay up the top. Ignore the cards and figures above that. That is for an expansion, which I'll go through in a different video. But for now, just focus on the 4 card tiles through the middle. There's a bunch of cards, and you have sort of a deck of cards that are the same for each season, because you're playing over 4 seasons. You're going to play spring, summer, and autumn, and then winter's going to be scoring. But spring, summer, and autumn have all got their own deck of cards, and you kind of have these cards that are in every game, and then you have 4 or 5, I think, different other little mini decks that you don't shuffle them, you just lay them out, but you add to the deck of cards so that you're going to have some variability game to game. So in the beginning of the game, because you're starting off in spring, you're going to lay out all the cards for spring so that all players can see them. You then shuffle these. These are war tokens. These are going to tell you which war is going to happen in which region at the end of this round, and that's very important. It also determines which order they are in, which is very important. That's what these flags are for. So you'll put these flags down in the order of where their relevant token is on the war track, and this is going to help all the players see not only which regions are going to war, but in which order they're going to happen in. The start player is given a big stack of tiles. These are the tiles you're going to be using to take your actions. We'll get into those in a bit, but the first thing you do at the start of each round is you have a tea ceremony. And when I said that, when I was teaching the game, everybody looked at me like I'd lost it. Yeah, because you have a tea ceremony. And what this is basically, it's a bit of a negotiation phase. We're going to talk to each other. You're going to look at the board. You're going to see who can help each other ready for the upcoming political phases where you're taking all your actions. You can do a little negotiation, a little bribery. You can pay money and Ronin in order to tempt somebody into joining you in a faction. You can stay on your own if you like. You can win a game on your own. But there is an advantage to going into an alliance with another player, which I'll get into in a bit. So once that phase is over, once all the alliances have been made, you go into the political phase. This is where you're going to be taking all your actions, and there are, I think there's 5, and I think there's 3 copies of each in that deck. So there's 15 of these big stonky tiles, and what you do is the player takes 4 of them. They're going to look at the 4, they're going to pick one, they're going to put it on this track. You're going to start with the left, and you're going to move it to the right. It's going to show you sort of the number of actions per round and show you how you're ticking towards the end of the round, and they'll put the rest of the tiles back on top. The 3 they didn't take put on top, but the one they did take they will put on the board, and everyone's going to do that in turn order, and most of the actions start to the left of the player that did it. One of them doesn't. I'll go through them all now very quickly. So the first one is recruit. This is how you get your dudes on the map. You're going to summon 1 figure from your reserve onto every stronghold you have on the board. So the more strongholds you have, the more you're going to be able to recruit. If you summon your Shinto, because as I said earlier, they can go to temple, so as you put them into play, you then decide, do you want to send them up to temple? And if you do, you just move them and you just put them on one of the temple tiles up at the top there. And we'll get to what that does in a bit. Each of these actions has a bonus, so the person who took the action and their ally, which is why it's good to sort those alliances out during the tea ceremony, will get to take an extra bonus, and the bonus for this action is you can summon 1 extra figure onto a stronghold. So that's all good. The second action is to marshal, and this is what's going to cause you to move your figures around the board and to build new strongholds, so that when you recruit later on, you're going to be able to put more figures out on the board. So you can move any number of figures one space over a border or down a shipping route. There are some shipping routes that connect two regions up, so you can sort of skip out big portions of the board there. And if you took the action, or you're allied with the person who took the action, you can pay 3 coins to build a stronghold anywhere on the board. It doesn't have to be next to a current stronghold or in the same region. It can be if you want it to be, but it can be built anywhere. So that's one way to not only recruit more people during a recruit action, but also to spread out more during a recruit action. The third action is to train. This is where you can buy these season cards. This is the one that starts with the player that played it, so they get first pick. Obviously, they wouldn't like to play this action and have last pick. That would be really unfortunate. And all you do is you choose one of the cards and you pay the money and you put it into your play area. If it's a monster, you take the monster mini, you put your colour base on it, and you summon it straight into play. The bonus for this action, for taking it or being allied with the player who takes it, is you get to reduce the cost of the card you buy by 1. The next action is harvest. All players gain a coin. That's very simple. That's a nice easy one to do. Everybody just gets a coin from the supply, adds it to their collection. As the bonus, again, if you played it or you're allied with the person who played it, in all the provinces that you have the most force. So a force is basically all figures have 1 force by default. Obviously some effects and some monsters and stuff may have more force than that. But each region has, next to where you put the little flag to determine if there's a war there's a little hex that shows you what you get if you've got the most force in that region and you've harvested. And so you just gather all that stuff. That's very simple as well. And the final action is betray. If you betray and you're in an alliance, you immediately break that alliance. But you don't have to be in an alliance to betray. You're not necessarily betraying the person you're allied with. You're just basically betraying in general out to the public and betraying anyone you happen to come across. So what you do here is you choose any 2 of the non-daimyo figures, the ones with the black base, your leaders. You choose any 2 of those and replace them with your own of that type. So if you remove a bushi, you have to put one of your bushi down. If you remove a monster, you put one of your monsters down, etc. It's quite important to note that that doesn't count as summoning. You're not summoning them onto the board, so you can't send a Shinto up to the temple by doing that. So, and don't trigger summon abilities from monsters and things either. So that is the actions. And once you take 3 of those actions at the beginning of a round, you've got these symbols. You can see after 3, then after another 2, and then after 2 more, they are the kami symbols. That's when the kami actions come into play. So you activate the temples left to right. Whoever's got the most force on that temple wins. Remember that honour breaks ties for everything, so whoever's got the highest honour in case of a tie, each unit again counts as 1 force. If you've got the most force, you get to activate. And you activate them in order from left to right, which is important because it could affect things later on. So maybe the first kami will affect who wins the second kami, etc. So that's just how those tiles work. And they all have different abilities, like moving up the honour track, giving you extra movement points, allowing you to put bushi into play, gaining some ronin, gaining coins, gaining points, and buying cards. So that's what they do, and if you win one, you get to take that ability. That's simple. So once you've done all 7 actions, you take the stack of cards, they go in front of the next player. The next player is going to be the person who sits with those, and as a reminder, at the beginning of the next round, they will go first. So nobody misses out, you just keep going round and round in order. And you go to a war phase, and this is where you have nice little battles. So behind a player's screen, they have a tile that shows them what all the actions do, as a reminder, so you know when you're picking them, and if somebody else picks them, you know what you're going to be doing on your turn. You flip that over, and now you have the war board. It's all very important and serious. And what you do on this is you're going to go through each of the battles in order, as I said earlier, from number 1 down to number whatever, depending on the player count. And whoever's in that region are going to have a fight, and it depends on who's there and who's allied with who. So we'll go through the options now for a battle. So first up, the most obvious thing, if there's only 1 player in that region, they win. Obviously, they don't have to fight anyone, and they just take the token. That's it. They get the token unopposed. If there's 2 players in that region and they're allied, then the player with the most force wins, but you don't have a battle. You're not going to kill anyone. You're just basically going to agree to give the person who's got the most force the battle token. That's it. They get the war token for the end of the round. Now, if there's 2 non-allied players, or there's more than 2 players, which does happen, then there's going to be a proper fight. We're going to have a bit of a war. And what you're going to do is you're going to use this war board where you get your money, and you're going to put some money on each of those, or any of those, however much you want, on as many or as few of the different options you like. There's 4 options to pick from. And once everybody's just decided how much money they're putting on and they're all finished, everybody will reveal at the same time and you go through the board again from left to right. So the first option is seppuku, which is to kill all of your figures. So they're all going to commit suicide, and you're going to gain 1 VP for each figure you lose, and you also gain 1 honour, and so that'll move you up the honour track a bit and gain you some points, but it's kind of taking you out the battle a bit. So you got to balance whether you do that. It is based on whoever's sort of placed the most money on that option on the player board, which is why it's a bit of a gamble. You don't know how much you need to put there, and you don't have to do this as well. If 2 people put the same amount, again, it's whoever's got the highest honour, but you don't have to commit seppuku if you don't want to, but only 1 player is going to do it. Next is take hostage. So whoever's placed the most money there will get to choose if they want to take a hostage. So they can take any one non-daimyo figure from any opponent in that province, and they remove it and you put it in front of your screen. You need them for later, so just keep that in mind. So whoever's won that gets to do that. You also steal 1 victory point from a player as well, which is funny. If they haven't got any points, you can't steal 1, but if they have, you get to nick a point off them. And the third option is to hire Ronin, and that's where those Ronin tokens you've got come into play. You can put them into the province, and they add +1 force for each Ronin you have there, so you can sort of bulk up your army before determining who's going to win. So that's quite important. And then whoever has the most force in that region is going to win the battle. If it just so happens that there's nobody left, again, it all goes down to the honour track. There doesn't have to be any living units in that province for the battle to resolve. The winner will take the War Province token for endgame scoring, and any losing figures in that province who's not allied with the winner, they'll all die. Every single unit will die in that province. Losing unit, that is. And then the final thing you bid for on the war board is called Imperial Poets, and this is where you're going to write a poem about this great battle that took place, and so you gain a point for every figure that was killed in this battle, so you can get quite a few points from that, especially if there's a lot of units in the battle. And then with the money that you've used, the losing players will get rid of their coins, they'll get discarded back to the supply, but the winner will then distribute the money that they bid evenly with the other players, which is interesting. After you do the battle, you do a bit of clean up. Any coins you have, you lose all of them. Any Ronin you have, you lose all of them back to the supply. Any Shinto you have in temples, they come back to you. And any of the mandates that you've played out, the action cards you've played out onto the board, they get returned and shuffled back into the deck. And then you set up a new round. And you'll play through spring, you'll play through summer, you'll play through autumn. Then in winter, I actually forgot to mention, at the end of a battle phase, you return all the hostages and you score a point for each one you return. I forgot about that. But yeah, in the winter phase, you're going to add VPs from any cards that give you bonuses for endgame scoring. You score points for each of the war tokens you've got. They're worth 1, 2 or 3 points, depending whether you got them in spring, summer or autumn. And then you score set collection for the different colours you've got from the different regions that you've won battles in. And you can get between 5 and 25 points for that, and the most points wins. And yeah, it's a decent game. It's exactly what I expected. When I got Blood Rage, I was expecting this big, brawling, exciting game, and it wasn't. So when I saw this was coming onto Kickstarter, I knew it was going to be not as good as I want it to be. But because I was expecting it this time, I wasn't disappointed like I was with Blood Rage when I first got that. So I enjoyed playing it. I like the negotiation part. I like forming these alliances purely just to take actions, maybe, because sometimes maybe you want to ally with somebody because they're nowhere near you on the board and you're not going to get into fights and you're not going to step on each other's toes fighting over battles. But maybe you want to form alliances with them because you're going to go into their region later on and fight for them, and it means that if they beat you, your figures aren't going to die. So that's a good thing. Obviously, it looks phenomenal. I've got all the Kickstarter stuff, so all the flags, all the plastic temples, all the extra monsters, all the extra clans and stuff, and the plastic mandate tiles and the plastic alliance tiles and stuff. I've got all that and it looks great. I mean, the retail version looks great anyway, so you don't really need all that stuff, but it does look fantastic on the table. People kept coming up and looking, picking things up and putting them back down again. And yeah, so it looks amazing. All the actions are cool. They're all, as I expected. That was the main part of the game. The reason I backed it was because of this action selection thing, but also the getting the bonus from having alliances with players. That's why I really wanted this game to focus on, and it does, and it's really, really good. And the wars are great as well, kind of bidding this money, trying to hoard your money in order to bid it in the war phase. And the war phase is actually quite tactical as well, because you've got that first part where you might kill everyone just to gain some points and some quick honour, Or maybe you've only got one figure in the battle and you're really trying to win because you really want to get that war province token because there were so many points at the end of the game that you need them. And then somebody bids a lot on take hostage and they take your only figure and you haven't got the force to win the battle. And you didn't win the higher Ronin, so you couldn't put your Ronin down on the board in order to win. So yeah, it's very tactical, the war part is. Really enjoy that. And overall, it's just a very nice game. It does take up a lot of table space. This is the playmat, the extra purchase playmat, which you need with playing with a lot of players, because you can see the board gets quite busy. And some of those smaller regions, especially if it's got a couple of monsters in with the big bases, can start feeling a bit crowded. So I'm glad I got the bigger board to play with higher player counts. The only negatives are it is just an okay game, and as I've said several times on my podcast and stuff like that, I am perfectly fine having this average game looking the way it does, and I'll keep it on the shelf. If I want to play a good area control game, I'll play El Grande, but sometimes I just want to get nice figures out and play a decent game and have fun, because it is fun, it's just not a really great game. But that's fine, I enjoy having it. What do you think of Rising Sun? Have you got it? Have you played it? What do you think of it? Are you unhappy you missed out on the Kickstarter? Do you disagree with Kickstarter exclusives? Let me know in the comments below. You can follow me on Twitter at JTR Podcast. You can support the channel at patreon.com/JTR Podcast, or find the blog and the podcast at jtrpodcast.com. I've been Rob, aka Jesta the Rogue, and I'll see you soon.